everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our second edition of Slack, It's a Snap. Your host today, Wendy Goldband of the Slack team. Welcome to our second episode of Slack, It's a Snap, a special show where we answer questions sent in by our QualityNet users. Today's topic is accessibility in QualityNet Slack. We'll be reading your questions and giving you the answers you need to make your work in Slack more accessible. I'd like to begin today with a little chat about why accessibility is something we need to pay attention to. Did you know that 25% of American adults have a disability? That's 1 in 4. So users with varying degrees we're talking about, they can have visual, cognitive, auditory, speech, and motor disabilities, but all different experiences that include some sort of disability. So I'd like everybody to take a minute and just consider how visually impaired people see web pages, or in fact, see our Slack app. Roll tape. Back in 1990, we had the Americans with Disabilities Act. That was a civil rights law that was prohibiting discrimination based on disability. According to court and Department of Justice interpretations, it included websites. So what that meant was accessibility rules applied to any government or business outward-facing website. Then there was Section 508. Earlier on, there was the Rehab Act of 1973, and that was just a federal mandate ensuring government buildings were accessible. They added the amendment to the Rehab Act in 1998, which was Section 508, and that requires all federal electronic content to be accessible. Now, this applies to government entities, but also includes any business that is receiving funding or providing services to the government. So that includes contractors. All right, so now's our time for listener questions. Let's move on and see what our first question is.
Can you adjust text to display larger?
Well, absolutely, yes, you can. So there are some keyboard commands that you can use as shortcuts for both Mac and Windows. But if you'd like, you can also adjust your zoom level preference by going into your preferences setting. So you can either get to preferences from your profile picture or over here on the left from CCSQ QualityNet. I'm going to go to preferences, and now I'm going to go down to accessibility on the left. And you see you have a variety of choices to either zoom in or zoom out for your text. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Our next question is,
can I change the way messages are displayed?
Yes, you can. You can do that by choosing a theme. Go up to preferences, and now we're going to go down to messages and media. And here you have a choice. You can pick either clean. Now, clean means it's a little wider with white space, and the picture of each person is displayed to the left of their name. Or you can pick compact, and you'll see that switched right here, this example, and it now shows Slackbot without his picture, and everything that he says is all just on one line. I prefer clean with a little more space and to see the profile pictures. Now, there are some other options that you can choose while you're in there. I didn't show those to you, but you can decide whether or not you want to show your full and/or display name. You can show if somebody is currently typing a message, and that little fine print underneath the message boxes. You can also have a 24-hour clock, and you can even display color swatches next to hexadecimal values if you need. And lastly, you can have your emojis display extra large if you want, when there's nothing else in the message box along with the emoji. And you can change the color of your coworkers' names. And this is an example of that, where you put their name and then the hexadecimal value. Oh, it's our special guest appearance time. And today's special guest is Snapper, our QualityNet Slack reporter. Welcome, Snapper.
Hi, Wendy. Thanks for having me. I don't know if you are aware of this or not, but many turtles like myself have a reflective layer in our eyes that helps us see better in dimmer environments. Is it possible for me to change my Slack screen so that my messages are displayed on a darker background?
Well, yes, Snapper. So your question is, can I make the display easier on my eyes? And the way we would do that is by using dark mode, because there's much higher contrast in the color theme. So let's go down to our profile picture, click Preferences, and this time we'll pick Themes. And you can pick either light or dark. Here's dark. You can also customize your color as well using one of Slack's themes, or create your own under the Custom tab. So you go down here where it says Slack Themes. Let's go to the light version again. We'll go down to Slack Themes. You can see there's a big variety of colors to choose from, or you can go to the Custom tab. So did that answer for you, Snapper? What do you think?
Oh, what a handy little way to adjust that. Thank you, guys.
Why, you're welcome, Snapper. So now what I'd like to do is show you another short video that gives you an idea of what it's like for somebody who has vision loss. Roll tape.
I had to stop reading print altogether and start using a computer screen reader to feed me audibly everything on my computer screen, my emails, etc. So my vision today is what the doctors call counting fingers in both eyes. So I don't even register on the visual acuity scale. I would say that depending on the lighting, I could maybe count fingers at a distance of about maybe 10 to 12 inches. And I best describe it as if you were to imagine coming out of a really hot shower and you look into that steamy, foggy mirror, that's kind of what I see. So I see a little bit of color, a little bit of shape, but mostly shadows.
To me, the best example is to understand what people are experiencing. So I hope that video helps that for you guys. And one of the things that leads me to is to say that Slack gives you the option to communicate without text. You can send a message with an audio or a video clip in Slack, which is a really nice feature. The audio clips are automatically transcribed and the video clips have closed captions. In either case, whatever you use, you're really hitting all different ways that people can understand what you're trying to send. And you'll find those icons very simply in the composition message box. The camera is for the video clips and the microphone is for the audio clips, and they're pretty intuitive to use. And you can make them quite long. I mean, I think you can go up to 5 minutes with the camera, so it's really nice. All right, next question.
How can I make huddles more accessible?
So this is an easy one. When you huddle with somebody, you can have what's called captions turned on. So these are live captions. They will actually transcribe the conversation taking place in your huddle in real time, and it does a pretty effective job of transcription. So start your huddle, and then down here by the 3 ellipses, we click to more options, and we click Show Captions. You have the option to choose Display as closed captions or side by side. I like side by side. This way you can actually save your captions. And you can see right now that it is transcribing the words that I'm saying. All the captions are along here on the right-hand side. If you wanted to start captions while you were in this larger screen, you would pick More Actions, this settings cog, and you would choose it from here. One thing to remember, captions don't save. So if you want a record of your huddle, make sure you copy and paste into a document that closed caption transcription so that you can save it once the meeting ends, because it will not be there once you shut your huddle down. All right, once again, it is time for us to go to another video. This one, what to think about when creating a web page, and also just in general about accessibility on web pages. All right, roll tape.
People with attention deficit disorder hate automatic motion because it just continually distracts them from their purpose of being there. So, if you have a continuously moving slide carousel or something like that, they might take one look at that and say, nope, not going to work for me. Now, on the flip side, if you have that, but you have the ability to turn it off, you've put the power in the hands of the user to correct their own situation. Okay, so being accessible is not about dumbing down the website to the least common denominator. It's about giving the user options that they can select so that they can set up an environment that works with their particular disabilities. And when I say disabilities, because I ran into this yesterday, where you get companies that just assume that people only have one type of disability. I went to a website, and it's like, oh, look, we've got a high contrast mode and we have a motion reduction mode. And I'm like, great, I have glaucoma and I get motion sick. I go to turn the second one on, it turns the first one off. So they tried to do a great thing, right, which is make a more flexible website. What they didn't do is they didn't involve people with disabilities in constructing it, because we could have told you, once you get one disability, you're a whole lot more likely to get more than one.
Something to think about. This brings me to another question.
Is alt text needed in Slack?
Yes. Use alt text in Slack whenever you can think about it, please. You know that most people who have vision disabilities use screen readers, and that's how they read, with the screen reader saying aloud what the text is. Now, if you do not have alternative text, or alt text as we usually like to call it, the screen reader will just jump right over the graphic image. That's what's used to describe the graphics. So you really want to use alt text. Now, let me show you how you actually do create alt text in Slack. It's not difficult. Just remember one thing too, though, please. When you're making your descriptions, I know it's so easy to take the lazy way out and just say screenshot, but don't do that. Try and fully describe the image. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to go over to Slack again. So here we are. I'm going to click my attachments, and I'm going to upload a new picture. Now what I want to do is I want to hover over the image, click on the 3 ellipses in that little toolbar that pops up, and next go to Edit File Details. And I'm going to describe the name. So it's a black and white vintage service man. And then I'm going to go into the description to give it even more detail. So it's a black and white vintage serviceman holding the gas nozzle at a gas tank. And I'm going to click Save Changes. And what happens is alt appears on the image now. And that's how you'll know if somebody's put an alt image on. And when I hover over or click on the alt image, the description will open up for me. The other thing to remember is your file descriptions. Here's where you can get into more detailed description. I'm going to hover over this file, and a little toolbar pops up on the right of it. I will click on the 3 ellipses, and now I can edit the file details by simply clicking on the pop-up box where it says Edit File Details. You can see it gives me the option to change the file name or to get into even more description when it's a graphic. And then you would click Save Changes. The other option is to open the file by clicking on it and click on the 3 ellipses down by the bottom right. Once again, you have the option to edit the file details. Oh, that sound means I think we have a surprise guest. Hello?
Oh, surprise! Hi there, Wendy. It's me, Barb. I think this attention to 508 accessibility is extremely important. Kudos to you. And I just couldn't help but call in with a question of my own. As you can see, I'm shooting from a remote location right now. Let's hope we don't lose reception.
Well, we're happy to have you here with us and making such a special effort to call in. Did you want to go ahead and ask us your question?
Yes, I was wondering, what about all those blinking and flashing GIFs and emojis we use in Slack? Are they considered acceptable for accessibility?
Well, your question, are blinking and flashing emojis and GIFs okay, is an important question because a lot of people have photosensitive seizure disorders. And these seizures are triggered by content flashing at certain frequencies for more than a few flashes. So we need to think about the impact of these emojis and these GIFs. If they're blinking, it's content that causes a distraction problem. And they can be allowed for a short time as long as the blinking stops or can be stopped. But if it's blinking faster than 3 per second, it's considered a flash. Flashing is content that can trigger the seizure. So if there's more flashes or more blinks, 3 per second, and they're large and bright enough, that's a problem. And even if they're allowed for a second, they can cause a seizure, which is why turning a flash off is not even an option. The seizure can happen faster than somebody could turn it off. Slack tries to allow for animated images and emojis, but also gives somebody the opportunity in their preferences to turn them off if they need to. What they would do is, once again, go up to their preferences menu, click accessibility, and under animation, they can check or uncheck the box next to automatically play animated GIFs and emojis. And one other tip, if you have an image and you want to close it, let me show you that. Here's an image. Let's say we don't want to show it anymore because it's distracting. You go up to the name of the image at the very top, and there's that little drop-down arrow, very tiny there on the right. Click it, and it hides the image. See, I could hide this one too if I wanted. So that's something to remember. It's a nice little tip for anybody who's getting annoyed or distracted by images that are in Slack. Did that answer your question for you, Barb?
Absolutely. You are the best. I just love our Quality Net Slack team. Always on the ball. Well, I've got to get back to my shoot. See you soon.
Bye, Barb. All right, another question.
How should URLs be written?
You need to write your hyperlinks so they're meaningful. In other words, don't write text that is difficult to understand. So if you had a screen reader reading off all long URLs, that would be very hard for any of us to understand. What you want to do is write your links so they're meaningful. You'll see down here, instead of that long URL on the top, you write SBX requests. Same with product pilot requests instead of that. And the other thing that you'll want to do is try to avoid the phrase click here. Instead, try and be a little more descriptive. Click here to complete the online form. And the bottom line here is, if you closed your eyes and heard your posts being read aloud, would it make sense to you? Think about that whenever you're in Slack or really anywhere else where you're communicating, and make sure that it's understood by everybody. If anybody has questions from today, please message us at the Help Slack channel in Slack, or visit our QualityNet Slack Confluence page on the Resources tab. We've got tons of material there. And lastly, if you'd like to learn more about 508 accessibility, we have a course about 508 accessibility in Atlassian. Our next session is Tuesday, December 10th at 11 a.m. And you can register for that on the Confluence pages for ESS Tools University. So thanks again for joining us today for Slack It's a Snap.